Welcome along, fellow Beatle people. As you know, John Lennon was rolling in dough. He owned incredible mansions and expensive vehicles and purchased anything he ever wanted, including his very own island. And so this time around, we're going to talk about the history of Dornish Island, John Lennon's Irish retreat. Before I begin, please like and share the show and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Now let's begin our journey. In 1967, at the height of Beatlemania and the psychedelic fervor of Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, John Lennon purchased Dornish Island, a small uninhabited plot in Clew Bay, County Mayo in Ireland. This 19-acre island, often dubbed Beatle Island by locals, became a symbol of John Lennon's quest for peace and solitude amidst his tumultuous life. The story of Dornish is one of dreams, counterculture experiments, and unfulfilled plans, shaped by John Lennon's vision and the island's remote, rugged charm. So let's talk about the purchase and the location. John Lennon acquired Dornish Island in 1967 for £1,700, which was about $2,700 at the time, through a public auction held by the Westport Harbour Board. The purchase was sparked by a newspaper advertisement that John Lennon spotted in London offering an island off Ireland for sale. To avoid the frenzy of Beatlemania, he sent a representative, Alistair Taylor, to bid on his behalf, outbidding local farmers who sought the land for grazing. Dornish lies in Clew Bay, a scenic inlet on Ireland's west coast near Westport County, Mayo. The bay is known for its 365 islands, with Dornish being one of the smaller ones, consisting of two landmasses, Dornish Moor, which means Big Dornish, and Dornish Beag, I hope I said that right, which means Small Dornish, connected by a natural stone causeway. Dornish has a modest but colorful history. You see, in the 19th century, it served as a piloting station for cargo ships navigating Westport's tidal harbor. Way back in 1841, the census recorded 13 inhabitants. Yep, you heard that right. 13 people lived there in the 1840s. But the population dwindled during the Great Famine. How could it dwindle even more? But yeah, it dropped to 6 by 1891. Imagine that. Imagine living on an island, you and 5 other people. And it's the 1800s. Must have been pretty exciting. But by the time John Lennon purchased it, the island was uninhabited and was used primarily for grazing livestock. Ruins of old marine pilot houses from the 1800s remain, hinting at its earlier human presence. Now, John Lennon's ownership brought Dornish into the global spotlight. His Irish heritage, his grandfather was a Dubliner, and his surname derived from the Gaelic O Lennon. Did you know that? So O Lennon became Lennon. And so those things, among others, likely influenced his decision to buy the island, connecting him to his ancestral roots. He saw Dornish as a sanctuary, a place to escape the pressures of fame, as he later told Rolling Stone in 1971, where he hoped to retire with Yoko Ono and, quote, looking at our scrapbook of madness, end quote. Now let's talk about the Sgt Pepper Caravan. One of John Lennon's most whimsical acts was transporting the psychedelic Gypsy Caravan to Dornish. It was purchased initially for his son Julian's birthday, and it was kept in the yard of the home that he shared with Cynthia and Julian. And it was later put on the lawn at Tittenhurst Park. And if you watch my videos on Tittenhurst Park, you can see the photos there when it was parked near the Keeper's Lodge and later ended up near the pool when Ringo Starr owned Tittenhurst Park. And you can see those photos and other videos that I did as well. As you can imagine, transporting it from London to a remote Irish island was no small feat. Legend has it that the caravan was towed by car to Westport, then floated across Clew Bay on a purpose-built raft to Dornish. And once it was there, you can imagine how it stood out starkly against the island's rugged terrain, a vivid symbol of 1960s counterculture. Now at this point, you might be wondering how much time John Lennon spent on this island that he owned. Well, he visited Dornish at least twice, possibly no more than twice. We know that his first trip came in 1967, shortly after the purchase, when he explored the island with local solicitor Michael Brown and boatman Paddy Quinn. How's that for an Irish name? Brown noted John's practical demeanor as he filmed the scenery with a Cine camera and discussed logistics for building a house, expressing concern about erosion. Quinn, unaware of John Lennon's fame, treated him as an ordinary customer, a testament to the west of Ireland's detachment from Beatlemania. Hey Yoko, if there's any chance that you're listening to this, it would be so cool to see that film footage that John Lennon shot. Do you have it? Wow, that would be great. Let's hope that that film footage is around somewhere and someday we could all see it. John Lennon returned in June of 1968. With Yoko Ono, they arrived by helicopter and they stayed at the Mulranny Park Hotel, which is now home to the John Lennon Suite. This is a cool looking hotel. You can stay there. And if you do, I guess ask them if you can stay in the John Lennon Suite. And if you do that, kindly contact me. I'd love to know all about it. They did spend one night in the caravan, but Yoko reportedly struggled with the island's isolation and she was unnerved by dive-bombing terns. Now don't laugh, but I did read a story that said that the birds were attacking her hair. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but it sure is an unusual story. Either way, these two visits, totaling less than a day and a half, were John Lennon's only documented time on Dornish. It must have been cool to be rolling in so much dough that you could buy an island and only visit it a couple of times and then never go back again. But check this out, in 1980, shortly before his death, it's been said that he inquired about renewing the lapsed planning permission, suggesting plans for a third visit that, as we know, never materialized. Now let me give you an idea of how to travel to Dornish from Liverpool. It would involve a mix of ferry, car, and boat. The fastest route would be to take a ferry from Liverpool to Dublin, which is about 8 hours, and then drive from Dublin to Westport, which is another 3.5 hours, and then hire a boat from Rosmony Pier to Dornish, which is about 15 to 20 minutes. Total travel time from Liverpool would be roughly 12 to 13 hours, excluding any wait times and traffic and that sort of thing. Alternatively, flying from Liverpool to Ireland West Airport Knock would be about an hour, followed by a 1-hour drive to Westport, and then you got the boat trip. So this could reduce the journey to about 3 to 4 hours depending on flight schedules. At this point, it seems like this was not the best purchase John Lennon ever made. It's not exactly easy to get to, and there are plenty of ways to get away from it all. But John Lennon initially envisioned Dornish as a family retreat, securing planning permission from Mayo County Council to build a house in 1967. But after his divorce from Cynthia in 1968, these plans stalled, and the permission lapsed in 1972. In 1970, seeking to share the island's tranquility, John offered it rent-free to a gentleman named Sid Rawle, who is considered to be, and these aren't my words, the king of the hippies, and his group, the Tribe of the Sun. Not exactly the most original name that I've ever heard, but I guess you gotta name your tribe something. If you had your own tribe, what would you name it? Kindly let me know in the comments below. Approximately 25 adults and a baby calling themselves the Diggers. Well, the baby probably didn't call himself a digger, but the adults did. They called themselves the Diggers, with a D, the Diggers. And they established a commune, living in teepee-style tents, growing vegetables, and relying on local fishermen for transport. Rawle described the experience as, quote, heaven and hell, end quote, citing the island's beauty, but also its harsh weather and internal conflicts.
Up to 20 people lived in this new society during the summer months. All but 3 have now passed on or are working on the mainland or in England to raise money for the commune. Hippie leader Sid Rawle and 2 youths will hold out on the island during the winter to prove it can be done. They spend their time building extra teepee tents and a pier. This summer, the island will be ready for large numbers of hippies.
We're using Dornish to set up a tribal community. It's really a place where people can come who want to go into this type of living and work out if they really do want to. If they want to set up communities of their own, they can come here and study what we're doing. I have to set up tribal structures and communes. Very simple. Very simple. That means that we don't want any of the paraphernalia and claptrap of 20th century society, if you like. But at the same time, peaceful, loving communities, as we believe that this is the way human beings should live. Together, peacefully, loving, helping one another, and simply a case of living, working, eating, and enjoying oneself, but not a sort of a society in which cars and televisions and families and personal hoo-ha and damn you, Jack, I'm all right, is good enough, because we believe that this is not the way human beings should live. This is not being civilized.
The Commune disbanded in 1972 after a fire destroyed their supply tent. I wonder who set that fire. Clearly somebody was unhappy in the Commune. John Lennon's long-term vision was to build a permanent home on Dornish, a plan he revived in 1980. His lawyer Michael Brown confirmed John's interest in renewing planning permission, envisioning a cottage for himself and Yoko. In fact, Yoko later said, quote, "It was a place where we thought we could escape the pressures and spend some undisturbed time together," end quote. Which she may or may not have meant. I mean, after all, the birds would still have been there. Not like the birds wouldn't have been there anymore, Yoko. She and John still would have had to deal with the dive-bombing turns. As we all know, tragically, John Lennon was murdered in December of 1980, and so that ended these aspirations. So what was the post-John Lennon fate and the current status? After John's death, Yoko sold Dornish in 1984 to local farmer Michael Gavin for nearly £30,000, donating the proceeds to an Irish orphanage. Gavin has since used the island for grazing sheep, a practice that they say continues today. The island remains uninhabited, with only the ruins of 19th century pilot houses and faint ridges from the hippie commune's vegetable patches as evidence of past habitation. In 2012, Dornish was put up for sale for £300,000. That's about $384,000. It was marketed as a retreat, but it found no buyer, partly due to its lack of planning permission and remote location. Yeah, I mean, look, if you have an extra $400,000 laying around, there are plenty of other ways to spend it besides buying an isolated Irish island. As of the time of this recording, it remains in Gavin's ownership, occasionally visited by Beatles fans, local sailors, and even some artists. In conclusion, Dornish Island, with its roughly 19, maybe up to 20 acres of windswept beauty, encapsulates John Lennon's search for peace and connection to his Irish roots. From its 1,700-pound purchase to the fleeting presence of the Sgt Pepper Caravan, the island reflects the idealism and chaos of the 1960s. John Lennon's 2 visits and unfulfilled plans for a home underscore its role as a dream deferred. Today, Dornish endures as a grazing site and an evocative footnote in Beatles history, which is why I'm talking about it. Its tranquility preserved amidst Clew Bay's timeless waves. So, what do you think of Dornish Island? If you're rolling in dough the way that John Lennon was, would you live on a place like that? I'm kind of thinking, no way I would. But it would be fun to visit. What do you think? What ideas would you have if you owned Dornish Island today? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Please check out the links below to learn how to support my research and productions. Kindly be kind to all of our fellow Earthlings, and please do not harm them. And do yourself a favor and go to a local shelter and adopt a cat or a dog or both. You and they will be very glad that you did. Until next time, I wish you safe travels on all your journeys.